In the animated movie Coco, there's this really terrifying concept called the final death.
Oh, yeah. That's a heavy one.
It really is. It's this idea that in the afterlife, a person only truly disappears, like they only fade into absolute nothingness when the very last person on Earth forgets they ever existed.
Wow. Yeah, it's such a stark image.
Right. And that was actually the opening thought from the pastor's message this week. And honestly, it completely stopped me in my tracks.
I can imagine. It's definitely an unexpected place to start a Sunday message.
Yeah, exactly. But it perfectly framed what we're doing here today. You know, just taking some quiet time together to reflect on that message, to kind of sit with these deeply comforting realizations.
Because when you really think about that movie, the reason it resonated so intensely with adults isn't just because it's a sad story about losing family.
Right, there's more to it.
Yeah, it tapped into something much darker, something much more universal. That concept of the final death hits a nerve because it exposes our absolute deepest human anxiety.
The fear of being forgotten.
Exactly. We spend so much time talking about the fear of dying, you know, the fear of our physical end. But underneath that, there is a much heavier dread.
Because we're terrified that our time here might just mean nothing.
Yes. We're terrified of the idea that our struggles, our quiet sacrifices, might ultimately be meaningless, that one day the world will just spin on as if we were never here at all.
And once you name that fear, you start seeing it everywhere. I mean, it completely drives the way we live our lives right now today.
Oh, absolutely.
We're all essentially just shouting into the void, going, please tell me my life mattered. You see it in the frantic way we chase degrees, or the obsession with climbing the career ladder.
Or the exhausting need for constant social media validation.
Yes, exactly. It actually got me thinking about how modern society treats human beings. It feels like we're treated as batteries in a massive machine.
Like batteries. That's a fascinating way to look at it. How do you mean?
Well, think about a battery. When you're fully charged, when you're performing well, improving your usefulness, society plugs you in, you know?
Right, you get the applause.
Exactly. You get the applause, the promotions, the invitations. People want you around because you're generating power for them. But the absolute second you lose your charge...
You swapped out.
Yes. Maybe you get sick, maybe you retire, or maybe you just can't keep up with the pace anymore. The machine doesn't stop to mourn you. It just grabs a fresh battery and keeps running.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredibly true.
I think that's why so many of us feel desperately lonely, even when we're standing in crowded rooms. We know we're only valued for our output.
And that conditional attention, it just creates this exhausting treadmill. Because when your entire worth is tied to your utility, you can never actually rest.
You have to wake up every single day and prove your right to take up space.
Right. You have to prove your worth just to remain visible. Because when you're no longer useful in the eyes of the culture, people move on surprisingly fast.
There's just no enduring loyalty in a system built on performance.
No, there isn't.
But, you know, that idea of conditional love at work is one thing we almost expected in the corporate world. But I think the most heartbreaking part of the pastor's message was when he brought that same logic into the home.
Oh, right. That shift from the workplace to the living room, it really changes everything.
Because if conditional, performance-based love exhausts us out in society, what happens when we start to feel our relevance fading in our most intimate spheres?
Yeah, with our own families.
The reflections shared about mothers were just so profoundly moving. Thinking about women who put their families first for decades.
The silent sacrifices.
Oh, yeah. They bought what their children needed before ever looking at their own needs. They smiled through unimaginable physical and emotional pain just to keep the household from falling apart.
They literally poured out every ounce of their battery charge into their kids.
Exactly. And the tragic irony is what often happens when those kids grow up.
Right, as the pastor shared from the home care ministry, those observations were they were incredibly sobering.
They really were.
You have these elderly mothers sitting in quiet living rooms, entirely surrounded by walls covered in framed photos of their children and grandchildren.
The physical evidence of their life's work is everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Yet they sit there, waiting hours just for the phone to ring, just hoping for a 5-minute conversation.
Sitting in the quiet, quietly wondering, am I still needed?
Yeah.
Asking, has all my sacrifice, all my love, just become a distant memory of the past? The thought of someone who gave everything feeling like they're slowly becoming invisible to the very people they gave it to is just devastating.
Really is. And, it's important to remember that while the imagery of the mother is powerful, this isn't solely a mother's story.
No, not at all.
That quiet, haunting question, am I slowly disappearing, is universal. We all face it eventually.
Like when you hit a certain age and realize the younger generation at work is no longer asking for your advice.
Right. Or it happens when your body starts failing and you can't participate in the hobbies or communities that used to define you. The world just starts looking right through you.
And here is where it becomes a spiritual crisis. Because when we feel invisible to the world, and even invisible to our own families, that creeping doubt doesn't just stay in our minds.
It infects our faith.
Exactly. If the people who are supposed to love me have moved on, we inevitably start to wonder, has God forgotten me too?
Which brings us directly to the scripture from the message, Isaiah 49.12.
Right.
It's crucial to understand the historical context here because these weren't just people having a bad day. Israel had completely fallen.
Jerusalem was destroyed.
Completely destroyed. The temple, which was the very center of their spiritual universe, was in ruins. And the people had been violently dragged away into exile in Babylon.
They had lost their homes, their identity, their future.
Everything. And from that place of utter devastation, they cry out, "The Lord has forsaken me, the Lord has forgotten me."
I want to pause on those two words for a second because the way the original language was unpacked really shifted my perspective.
Oh, forsakes and forget.
Yeah, they sound like synonyms to us today, but they carry these distinct, agonizing meanings in the text.
They do. To forsake someone means to withdraw your care. It's a failure of action.
It's like watching someone struggle and deciding to let go of the rope.
Exactly. But to forget someone is even deeper. It means to actively push someone out of your concern entirely. It means they no longer exist in your mind or your heart.
Wow.
So when the Israelites are crying this out, it isn't just whining. It's the profound, suffocating despair of people who feel they have been completely abandoned by heaven while they are still alive.
I was reflecting on how modern church culture handles that kind of despair today.
Not always very well, I'm afraid.
No, not at all. If we're honest, there's often this toxic positivity that gets pushed on us. Like if you walk into a sanctuary feeling completely abandoned, carrying this collapsing heart, well-meaning people will often just hand you a Bible verse.
Right, give you a pat on the back and tell you to just choose joy.
Yes. There's this unspoken demand that believers must always be strong and victorious.
It creates a culture where people feel like they have to hide their actual pain just to be a good believer.
Exactly. But what was so beautiful about the pastor's message is that he showed us real faith is not the absence of a collapse.
No, it isn't.
It's not pretending everything is fine when your world is in ruins. Look at David in Psalm 13 asking how long God will hide his face. Or the entire book of Lamentations.
Real enduring faith is having the courage to drag your exhausted, doubting, collapsing heart directly to the feet of God.
Trusting that the creator of the universe is not annoyed by your tears.
That is an incredibly freeing thought.
Yeah.
God is not intimidated by our doubt, and he doesn't demand we clean ourselves up before we express our pain.
And it's so powerful to look at how God actually responds to Israel's weeping in this passage.
He doesn't scold them for lacking faith.
No, he doesn't offer a philosophical argument either. Instead, he answers their fear of being forgotten by comparing his love to the absolute strongest earthly bond we can comprehend.
He asks, can a mother forget the baby at her breast?
And the linguistic connection there is just stunning.
It really is. In Hebrew, the word used for God's compassion or mercy in this text is intrinsically tied to the word for womb.
So it's a maternal, visceral type of love.
Yes. The text is telling us that God doesn't love us from a sterile professional distance the way a manager cares about an employee.
He isn't sitting behind a desk reviewing our performance metrics.
Exactly. He carries us at the absolute deepest level of his existence, the way a mother carries a child inside her own body.
That imagery is so deeply comforting. But I have to admit, as I was listening in the pew, the very next sentence caught me completely off guard. I actually bristled a little bit.
The though she may forget part.
Yes. God establishes this beautiful metaphor of a nursing mother, the ultimate symbol of human devotion, and then immediately says, though she may forget.
Yeah, it feels a bit jarring.
Why would God undermine maternal love like that? Why point out the failure of the very thing? He just used to show us how much he cares.
Well, it feels jarring, but there's a profound theological truth there. The Bible is deeply realistic, and it never idolizes human love.
Even though we desperately want to believe that human love is perfect.
Right, especially mother's love. We want it to be unfailing. But the tragic reality of our broken world is that even the very best, most dedicated human love can fail.
Parents get exhausted.
They get exhausted, they get wounded by their own traumas, sometimes they make terrible mistakes, and sometimes, unfortunately, human love is entirely absent.
Which means if we build our ultimate foundation on human relationships, we're always going to be vulnerable to that final death fear.
Precisely. We constantly try to find our ultimate security, our ultimate validation in other people, a spouse, a parent, a child.
But no human being was designed to stand in the place of God.
No. If your worth is tied to human memory, it is fragile. By saying, though she may forget, I will not forget you, God is establishing that his love does not operate on human terms.
It doesn't get exhausted.
It doesn't get exhausted. And it doesn't fade when we stop being useful. In fact, his love moves closer precisely in the moments when we are at our absolute weakest.
The ceiling of human love is merely the floor of God's love.
What a great way to put it.
But, if human love, the strongest thing we know, can fail, what guarantee do we actually have that God won't eventually let us go?
What proof do we have?
Right. What proof do we have that we won't just become another discarded battery to heaven, too?
Okay.
That leads us to verse 16, which might be one of the most remarkable images in all of Scripture.
See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands.
Yes.
To really grasp the weight of that promise, we have to look at the ancient world. In antiquity, if you wanted to make a permanent record of a promise or a debt, you would engrave it into stone or metal with an iron pen.
It was a permanent, irreversible mark.
Exactly. And in some cultures, servants would be tattooed with the name of their master, or worshipers would tattoo the name of their deity on their own bodies as a sign of devotion and belonging.
So it was always the lesser submitting to the greater.
Always. So the idea of the almighty, sovereign creator of the universe reversing that dynamic is completely scandalous.
Completely scandalous.
God is saying, I didn't demand that you scar yourself with my name. I took the iron pen and I permanently scarred my own hands with yours.
And notice where the engraving is. It isn't on his back. It isn't on his shoulder. It's on the palms of his hands.
Yes. In biblical poetry, hands always represent action, power, and constant attention.
Because whatever you're doing, your hands are always right in front of your face. You cannot use your hands without looking at your palms.
Exactly. So if your name is engraved on the palms of God's hands, it means every single action God takes in the universe is done with you in his sight.
He cannot act without seeing you.
He is actively working for your purpose, holding on to you even when you feel trapped in whatever your personal Babylon is right now. You are permanently etched into his continued action.
Wow. That brings it all full circle in the most breathtaking way. Because we know, living on this side of the resurrection, that this wasn't just a poetic metaphor in the book of Isaiah.
No, it became a physical, historical reality.
This ancient promise points directly to the cross. As the pastor shared with us, when Jesus rose from the grave, he had a glorified, perfected body. He defeated death itself.
He could have erased the trauma of the crucifixion entirely.
But he didn't. In John 20, when he appears to Thomas, he still has the nail scars in his hands. He chose to keep the wounds.
And why would a perfected Savior keep his scars for all of eternity?
Because those marks the permanent record of our salvation. The very names of broken people carved into his flesh are not a source of shame for him. They are his joy and his eternal glory.
He kept the scars to prove that he has not and will not ever forget us.
What a profound truth to center our lives on.
It really is. And, the practical application here for you listening to this right now is so rich.
Absolutely. We started by talking about the exhausting treadmill of the modern world.
The fear of the final death, the constant need to prove your usefulness. The world will always measure your value by your function, but the God of the universe measures your value simply by your existence.
And that completely removes the terror of aging or losing our jobs or stepping out of the spotlight.
It does. As the pastor quoted from Isaiah 46, even to your old age and gray hairs, I am he who will sustain you. I have made you and I will carry you.
You do not need to fear the gray hairs.
You don't need to fear the empty nest or the quiet retirement or the failing body.
So, the invitation for all of us this week is to finally step off that exhausting treadmill. Stop trying to earn your validation from the applause of a world that is designed to quickly forget you.
You don't have to shout to the universe that your life matters.
No, because the creator of the universe has already settled the question. You are already seen. You are already valued. You are intimately and eternally remembered by God.
And as you carry that deeply comforting reflection out into your week, let it challenge the way you walk through your own life.
Yeah, how does it change things for us?
Well, if your ultimate worth is entirely secured, because God has your name permanently scarred into his own hands, you no longer have to spend all your energy worrying about yourself.
Right.
So how might that change the way you look at the people around you? Think about the forgotten or unimportant people you walk past every single day.
The people who are desperately running that treadmill, exhausting themselves, just trying to be seen.
Exactly. Who in your life feels like a discarded battery right now? And who can you be the hands of God for today to remind them that they have never been forgotten?